watching Kenosha Community Television.
Well, hey, Jason, for me,
either he wants to say something or eat something, one of the two.
Take the opportunity to put our musical interest.
Acting, dancing, and now singing a Grammy winner.
Those movies, and particularly Night Shift and Gung Ho.
Really? Never knew that.
Okay, here we are at this time of the year is the kettle drive for the Salvation Army, and I'm with your name?
Lieutenant Jason Alcom.
Lieutenant, great to see you today. Let's start with the Salvation Army. For those who don't know about the Salvation Army, what is it?
The Salvation Army is a Christian organization that started 150 years ago this year. So we're celebrating actually 125 years here in Kenosha this year. And we just help out people whatever way we can, whether it be food, whether it be rental assistance, anything that we can do to help give back to the communities locally.
And let's talk about the kettle drive today. What's going on for the kettle drive?
Well, today specifically, as you can see, we have this all decked out in Green Bay colors. We actually have another one down at the other end of this store. It's Bears colors. We're actually doing a ring off to see which fans are more giving. But the Salvation Army puts out kettles every year, and it's to raise money for our programs that's year round. So it's not just to help at Christmas. It helps people all year through.
Yeah, so it's really creative with your bell ringers. They do either music or some other creative way to get people involved.
Oh yeah, sure. I mean, we've had people out there with guitars, people out there with boom boxes just playing Christmas carols. Anything to be creative. I mean, people like to see that holiday spirit, that good, fun holiday spirit out at the kettle stands.
And let's talk about your location, what programs you have to offer. You're on 75th Street?
We're on 75th Street. It's 3116 75th Street. We have bread daily, so anyone that wants to come for bread, they can come Monday through Friday and get bread every single day, Monday through Friday. We also have a food pantry for people that need a little bit more than just bread. They can come in once a month for that. We offer rental assistance when we have funds for that to help people prevent them from getting evicted and stuff like that. We also have other church type programs. We have church services every Sunday at 11 o'clock with Sunday school at 10 o'clock in the morning on Sundays. And we have youth programs Wednesday night starting at 5 o'clock. We have a Bible study every Monday night at 6 o'clock. So we have a lot of stuff going on. Women's ministries groups on Tuesdays at 1:30. Yeah.
Well, again, this time of the year, it's always hit hard with families, but it's all year round as well. Right. Do you have other fundraisers throughout the year that we should know about?
We have a couple fundraisers kind of here and there sporadically throughout the year, but this is our main thing. I mean, what we raise here gives us anywhere from 80 to 90% of our funds for the entire year. So this is really important that we get the buckets out there and that we get them filled up this time of year so that way we can help people throughout the year. Because as Salvation Army used to have a slogan, it said, "Need knows no season," and it's so true. It still is that need knows no season. There's people in need all year round.
And I believe you can donate online, if that's correct. It's not only here, but online. Is that correct?
Yeah, that's correct. We actually have an online kettle right now for the Christmas. It's onlineredkettle.org/SA Kenosha. And yeah, people can donate any dollar amount on there. We set a goal of $5,000 on our online kettle, and hopefully we'll meet that. Last year we raised a little over $3,000, and it was the first year that we raised anything on our online kettle. So here's hoping that we do better even on the online kettle. But onlineredkettle.org/SA Kenosha.
And then also for information, if people want to learn more, or if they want to volunteer, do you still need volunteers for the kettle?
Always. We need volunteers for ringing. We're actually paying some ringers this year too, so it's not too late if you want a little extra money to spend at the holidays and you could use an extra job and you don't mind standing out in the cold. We're hiring bell ringers as well, but throughout the year we need volunteers helping in our food pantry and everything like that. You can call us at 262-564-0286, and you can also check out our service and everything online at sakenosha.org.
Well, once again, the Salvation Army is an excellent organization in the community, a great fundraiser that's going on. And Lieutenant, thanks so much for telling us today.
If anyone wants to come out on December 19th, if you want to sign up to ring that day specifically, we're going to do a battle of the border. So not just the football teams, but all the teams from Chicago, all the teams from Wisconsin, and see how well we do. So.
Oh, okay, great. Same thing. They'd call or go online as well.
Right, yeah. If you go to our website, there's a whole link at the bottom that tells people how they can sign up online. They can look at the schedule and see, hey, what's open, and yeah, come out and ring.
Well, it wouldn't be Christmas without the Salvation Army helping our communities. And again, Lieutenant, thanks so much for talking with us today.
Yeah, thank you, Jason, and thank you all for helping support the Salvation Army.
Welcome back, and it wouldn't be complete with our Christmas show with the one and only Mr. Dick Lesko from Suburban Lawn and Garden. Thank you, Dick, for coming on down. It's not winter weather at this time, but we definitely getting in the Christmas mood. And I wanted you down here so we can talk about what we have to offer, that we can talk about, that people can get in the Christmas mood. And let's hear what you got.
Well, we probably should be starting to talk about Christmas plants because a lot of people get poinsettias for Christmas. Christmas cactus is another good one that people like to give as gifts. And the question is, what do you do with this plant when you get it in the house? Where do I put it? How do I treat it? How much do I water it? There's all kinds of questions that arise. First of all, when you pick out a poinsettia plant, you want to look for one that has large blooms. Now, if you notice this plant we've got on the table here, it has very, very large blooms at the top. The blooms are actually the leaves that have colored red, and there's a process that the growers use and people at home can use to accomplish this, and I'm going to touch on that in a little while. I want to start out first by when you select a poinsettia plant, make sure you get one usually fairly compact. This one has probably about 8 blooms intertwined on here, so it looks like a mass of red on the top. If you notice also, the green leaves are not just green, they're dark green. That means they were handled well at the greenhouse, they were fertilized well, and they've got that nice deep green pigment. That's what you want to look for. As far as the plant itself is concerned, it depends on the spot that you're going to put it in. If you maybe you want to showcase it in your front window, then you want a plant that's going to be taller than this one. This is a very compact plant that I'm showing you here. And you also might want to look when you purchase it to see if there's a leaf guard, a plastic leaf guard. I don't know if we can get a little better look at this or not. It's a plastic reinforcement here so that the branches of the poinsettia will not sag. And on a plant like this here, that's not real important, but on the bigger plants, it's very important. So you might want to check that when you're buying your poinsettia plant, whether it's one that you're buying for yourself or if perhaps you're buying it as a gift for somebody else. So when you do get it home, what's the first thing you should do? Almost all of the poinsettia plants will come with a sleeve. Of course, the pot is inside. If I grab a hold of it here, pull it out, the pot is inside, and of course just a sleeve here. And that's just a decoration, but what it does, if you notice, in the bottom of the sleeve, there's no hole in there. So the water that you water the plant with is going to well up in the bottom of the sleeve unless you do the most important thing of all when you get this home. Number one, make sure you've got it in a saucer like I've got here on the table, a plastic saucer underneath, and take a pencil or a pen and poke a hole right in the middle of the sleeve so that the water will drain into the saucer. That way you will know that you have either watered the plant too much or maybe just right. And if you've got water welling up in the saucer, you're overwatering it. You take it out of there and dump it in the sink and don't water it anymore for at least a couple days. You want to keep it in the sleeve because the sleeve makes it look awful nice. You don't see the soil pot that's underneath that the plant is growing in. Pretty much, that's what the care is all about on a poinsettia plant.
Okay, and now with this time of the year, they got their Christmas trees, and then they may want to put maybe some Christmas wreaths up there. We just have a couple minutes left. Let's talk about the Christmas wreath.
Yeah, we've got wreaths, of course, to make sure that when you buy a wreath, you purchase a wreath, a live wreath, make sure that when you rub your hand up and down the needles, you don't have all kinds of them falling out. And that's really the key to the survivability and the length of time that a green wreath will stay needle fast. Otherwise, they'll start browning on you. You don't want that to happen, of course.
All right, and then the last minute people that do go out and get their Christmas trees, same situation. The standard brush the
Same
leaves.
thing. Just run your hand on the needles on one of the branches, and if the needles come off in your hand, move on.
Okay.
Check a different tree.
Well, and when Christmas is over, which I never want to happen, but it does, that all this, the poinsettias, the wreaths, and the tree, what's the recommendation, what they should do with them?
Well, make sure when you set up a live tree that you put a Christmas tree recovery bag underneath, a big plastic bag, so that when it's time to take the tree down, you can just pull the bag up over the tree, fasten it, take it out to the curb or whatever you're going to do with it. Anyone who is an avid bird feeder knows that if you've got a live tree and you want to make use of it, you put it out in your backyard, stand it up, wire it onto a closed pole or onto the fence. It's a nice habitat for wild birds, especially near a wild bird feeder. So that's another hint for the use of that tree.
And how long do the poinsettias last roughly?
Oh my gosh, I've had them already at Christmas and have gone all the way to Mother's Day.
Oh wow.
Yeah,
Okay.
if you give them the proper amount of light and just make sure you turn them every so often, they do hold their blooms for a long, long time. There's a method of getting the blooms to come back next year. You got to remember, you got to provide the poinsettia itself, which will be all green leaves. You provide it with uninterrupted darkness during evening and night hours. And beginning early in October, you cover the plant with a large cardboard carton, big box you can get at a supermarket. Cover it completely. You do that about 4:30 in the afternoon, leave it on all night, take it off about 6:30 in the morning. It needs about 14 hours of total darkness from October, first week or two in October, through, well, maybe second week in December.
Okay.
By then, most of the bracts or the leaves will start coloring red.
Okay. And for those who want more information on our tips and techniques, I believe there's a radio show that is still currently going. Is it? Or
There is a radio show called Plant Chatter on Saturday morning, 7 a.m. until 8 a.m. on WLIP 1050 on your AM radio dial.
Or stop into Suburban Lawn.
Stop in Suburban Garden Center, 37th and 27th Street. We're there to answer your questions.
All right. Well, let's give a big round of applause for the one and only Dick Lesko from Suburban Lawn and Garden.
Thanks for having me on, Jason.
And we'll be right back.
Can you name the one place where you have access to nearly everything on the web, and in print, and even have personal assistants to help find what you're looking for? It's right in your backyard, the library. Libraries have always been places for education and self-help. Today, they're at the forefront of the information age. Come see what's new at your library.
Okay, here we are at the Milwaukee Public Library, and I'm honored to be with a terrific author here that's going to be speaking today is Chris Van Allsburg. Thank you so much, Chris, for coming to Milwaukee. How did you get started into writing or becoming an author?
Well, I actually went to art school, but I didn't know when I was in art school that exactly what I wanted to do. I was studying sculpture and studied sculpture as an undergraduate and graduate, and didn't really get involved in picture making and storytelling till I was around 28, 29, and that's when I first wrote my first book.
And which book was that again?
That was called The Garden of Abdul Ghazazi. Yeah.
And now you do illustration and the writing as well. Is that pretty common in children's books?
It's not. I mean, it's not unheard of, but usually picture books for kids are collaborations. One person will write the story, and then an art director will match them with an illustrator, and so it will be a collaboration. In my case, the collaboration is pretty easy because I can always talk to the illustrator.
Right, exactly. And the Caldecott you've been honored with. For those who don't know about that, the award is. Could you explain what that is?
Well, each year the American Library Association gathers together, and they have a committee which hands out 2 awards. One is the Newbery Award, the other is the Caldecott Award. The Newbery is for the best chapter book of the year for young readers, and the Caldecott is the award given to the best picture book of the year. And so I was fortunate to have been honored twice with the gold Caldecott medal and once with an honor medal.
I believe the one was the Jumanji, which is a terrific book and went out to be a great movie as well. Where did you get the idea and inspiration for Jumanji?
Well, Jumanji, the sort of idea for the pictures was something that's always kind of interested me. It's an idea called cognitive dissonance, where you have 2 things that are ordinary and recognizable. When you put them together, suddenly you've got something strange. And so I thought the idea of jungle animals in the familiar, secure environment of a home, that was a strange and provocative idea. And then I had to have a story that would actually, create a reason for that happening. And I sort of thought, well, what if there was such a thing as a board game, and every time something happened on the board game, it wasn't something you simply imagined, but actually happened. As soon as those dice rolled and you landed on that square, whatever awful thing was described was going to happen.
Absolutely terrific book, and it just went on also to the movie. Did they approach you to do the movie, or how did that come about?
They approached me, and they approached me with an enthusiasm for the project, but like many movie projects that start out as books, it's not clear that the book will ever become a film. They option many properties, then they write scripts, then they make a decision whether or not it actually is worthy of the investment that will be made to make a film. Came up with a story which actually expanded the book. The book's only 32 pages, so if you make a movie that's faithful to it, it will only be about 10 minutes. But it was obviously going to be a feature-length film, so the requirement was to find material that would make an interesting and a longer story, but would be faithful to the sort of the content and the action of the original book.
Well, let's move on to what we're here for, the 30th anniversary of the Polar Express. What a great family picture book author as far as Christmas as well. Where did that all start, coming up with the idea for the Polar Express, the book?
Well, the idea came up with sort of like in Jumanji, where I had this idea of strange things in recognizable places. I had an idea, and I'm not sure exactly how to describe it, maybe like a daydream, of a train that was standing in a wooded setting, and it was winter, and in a sense it was just me envisioning a still image of this train, and I imagined that this train was waiting for me, and as I thought about it more and daydreamed a little bit more, I saw myself as a young boy, 8, 9 years old, approaching this train and believing that if I got on the train would take me wherever I wanted to go. So at that point, that was an idea that was sort of a magic carpet story, the power of being able to get on something and go anywhere. But once I got on the train, when I thought about it, imagining that, and imagining that it was winter, I thought if I could go anywhere in winter, and it was perhaps, let's say, Christmas Eve, I thought if I could go anywhere, I'd want to go to the North Pole. So that idea was thematically blended with this story of a train trip to the North Pole, and so it became the story of my journey as an 8-year-old to Santa's workshop.
Well, you coming?
Where?
Why, to the North Pole, of course. This is the Polar Express.
Yeah, let's move on to the film version, because not only was the book really popular, the film kicked off a lot of fan base to get interested in reading the book. Same situation, did they approach you, or how did the whole, when they wanted to do the movie?
Well, it was interesting. I remember someone was describing watching late night television, and I hit the sack earlier than that, so I didn't see much of the Tonight Show. But somebody said, "Gosh, I saw Tom Hanks on talking to Jay Leno, and Jay asked him how he celebrated Christmas. And he says, I love this book called The Polar Express, and I set up this little train around the base of the tree for my kids, and so we read The Polar Express and we watch the train go around." And I thought, gee, that's great that he likes to reenact it like that. I knew other families did it too, but they don't get to talk about it on national television. And then it was about, I don't know, a couple months later, I got a letter from, my publisher was approached by Playtone production company, which was Tom Hanks's production company. And they said, they'd like to have a conversation about making a movie of the Polar Express. And so I was interested in doing that. I already made a film of Jumanji, so I knew the process. I knew that it was it was fraught with frustration on occasion, but it's still a fairly thrilling thing to see, what is static in your book, a still picture, and a story which is told through print, to see the possibility of that becoming a movie image and the story being told through dialogue and action and music. It's quite complicated. There are so many people involved that the likelihood of it becoming the thing that you imagine it might be is really small, because it's just such a complicated thing. But I was excited about it, and I knew that from my conversations with Tom Hanks that he had an interest in the book that was based on its simplicity and sincerity, and he didn't want to make something different than that. We knew that it had to be longer than that, but he wanted to do something that was basically that story, the story about a boy who was suffering with some, skepticism, doubt about Christmas and about Santa Claus. And that's what it turned out to be. And the film was, I think, in many ways quite faithful to the book. It had the kind of melancholy notes that are in the book, kind of it's not a happy story. It's not a sad one either, but it does have a poignancy that was in the book, and happy to see that reproduced in the film.
Let's talk about the ending of the book, is the symbolism of the bell. Why did you end it with that?
Well, that's the kind of an ending in a story where an author can get to a point and realize that there's an opportunity there to very succinctly create a kind of coda that sort of reflects back on the rest of the book and sort of clarifies the theme. And when you do that, sometimes you have to go back in the beginning of the story and put things in so that the coda makes more sense. But when I wrote the story, it started out with this desire to hear the bell, and that was so clear to me that it was actually simply me not creating story material, simply remembering what it was like to be 8, and to be 8 years old and be listening for the bell. So I wasn't making anything up. That it's autobiographical at that point, and it's not fictional at that point either. I was 8, and I was listening for that bell, and I'd had reasons to doubt I might hear it, but I did. So when I got to the end of the story, and I'd gotten to the point where the boy chose a gift, I knew that if that was me, and I had gone to the North Pole, I would have chosen that bell. And since the story began with my yearning to hear it, it was appropriate that I was rewarded at the end with the bell, and a bell that I could hear because I'd made that trip, and because nothing was going to keep me from believing in Santa, because I'd met the man.
You mean this guy?
30 years, and you've probably gotten letters and talking to fans of the book. Why is that connection there between the book and the many millions that have read it?
A little bit of a mystery to me, and it's fine, and because when I think, not just me, but I think when an artist, illustrator, painter, sculptor, when they finish something, they have expectations that the audience will be moved, but they can't always say in what way. And they can't always say how profoundly they'll be moved or in how great a number they might be moved. But there's an expectation that the thing you've made will affect the person who sees or reads it. And so I had hopes, but I didn't have expectations that it would become part of people's holiday celebration, that there would be reenactments of it all around the country. I think there's like 50 or 60 Polar Express rides now where right after Thanksgiving, people can actually take short train rides where they reenact the thing. So all that was a very happy surprise for me, and I can't really account for it. I mean, I guess it resonates with people because it does have to do with a theme that's about that surrounds Christmas, which is this idea of a world that has some mystery and magic in it, and it sort of, covers it. It's a thing that you feel for the whole month. I mean, it builds up and it builds up, and the preservation of that in a family, I think, is important, and the thing that preserves it most is the children in the house who still believe.
Since you have been in the business for so many years, what about the changes now with the technology, with the internet, and how people read? What's your feelings on that?
Well, my feelings about the digital display of picture books is low. My opinion is low. Not because I think that getting information through a device is inherently bad, but with a picture book, some of the things that are about it, some things about picture books that are so satisfying is they vary greatly in size. They vary greatly in their feeling, whether they're on coated paper or uncoated paper. There's board books, there's hardcover books, there's soft books. So there's a whole variety of sort of physical interactions that you have, or physical sensations you have when you look at these books. Polar Express is this big. If you're looking at it on a Kindle, it's always going to be that big. And every other book you're going to look at is that big. And it sort of grinds all those books into a kind of a more common experience. And so that seems to me to be limiting, artistically speaking, as a way to express yourself. And often when kids get devices, they end up operating the devices on their own because, they're basically almost designed that way so kids can interact individually. And there have been studies of children reading a paper and ink book with a child and a child reading that same material on a device, and the interaction is completely different because the child's just isolated looking at this thing, but when they're with an adult and sharing that experience and turning the page together and talking about things, there's a level of interaction during the telling of the story and observation of the pictures that's completely missing when it happens on a device when a child's independent.
What?
Merry Christmas!
Chris, I want to thank you so much for coming to Milwaukee. Thanks so much for doing this interview, and I've always wanted to say it, Merry Christmas.
Thank you. Same to you.